have really taken that entrepreneurial spirit throughout my entire life, in grown businesses and started businesses and closed businesses and failed with a lot of businesses. But as an entrepreneur, we're always looking at, problem solution, or we look at something that's innovative and something that's unique and see if there's a way that we could put our own kind of touch and special uniqueness ourselves onto that product or service. And so it started at a very young age, growing up the way I grew up. And
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. Today, as always, I have a very special guest, an incredible, very accomplished gentleman here. And before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been leaving comments, reviews, likes on all the major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, and to those who have been watching on YouTube as well. Thank you. And today I want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, some piece of information, some inspiration to go out and take action, I want to ask you to please share this with one friend who you think needs it, because this is how we grow, this is how we share our message, and this is how we're able to motivate, inspire, and bless other men out there so that they can gain the tool sets, mindsets, and skill sets to achieve true freedom, success, happiness, and fulfillment, and so that they can have it all. So today I have Michael Alden. He's CEO, entrepreneur, and three-time Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author. He was named by the Boston Business Journal as one of the Boston 40 under 40, and was the winner of Smart CEO's Future 50 Awards, largely based on his accomplishments of growing a small call center into a comprehensive multi-million-dollar marketing firm, ranked by Inc. magazine for 3 years in a row as one of the nation's 5,000 fastest-growing private companies. He has been seen by millions worldwide as the host of numerous long-form advertisements, which feature dozens of successful products. And he's a regular guest on a lot of podcasts. He has his own podcast, books, companies, money, a bunch of things. And Mike, thank you very much for being here, man. I'm very glad that you're here. Thank you very much for making time for this. And you're welcome, man.
well, thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it. When you first reached out, I didn't realize you're actually in Mexico, which is kind of cool. I think I've done some podcasts with people in Australia and the UK. I actually did one in South Korea. So I'm like, I'm like a pit bull worldwide. No. Man, and you know what? I know that we weren't recording earlier, but what you've accomplished in your young career is remarkable. So congratulations to you, man. It's exciting to see where you're going to go.
Thank you. I'm excited as well, man. So the first thing that I do with my guests is that I tell them to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
Do you want me to start now, or we can start a clock?
I have it here, man. Go ahead. Yeah.
75 seconds or less. I think my entrepreneurial journey is very similar to what you hear for a lot of entrepreneurs, where, I grew up poor, grew up with nothing. And so I wanted something. And so I was the kid that was mowing lawns on the weekends and had a paper route, and I had a lemonade stand, and I was shoveling snow on the weekend. I'm sure that, I don't know if parts of Mexico get any snow, but I don't think so. So in the winters here, we had that. And then, I have really taken that entrepreneurial spirit throughout my entire life. In grown businesses and started businesses and closed businesses and failed with a lot of businesses. But as an entrepreneur, we're always looking at, problem solution, or we look at something that's innovative and something that's unique and see if there's a way that we could put our own kind of touch and special uniqueness ourselves onto that product or service. And so it started at a very young age, growing up the way I grew up. And I think it's always going to be with me for the remainder of my life.
Cool. Yeah.
How many seconds was that?
It was a little bit less than 75 seconds. It was like 62. So you had
good.
a couple of seconds more, but no worries, man. I was a kid entrepreneur. So like I grew up in a border town, right? Border town with Mexico and the US. Went to school in the US, but lived in Mexico. Would cross back and forth every single day. And that's why I never learned how to speak English. I knew English. I knew how to read and stuff, but I never learned how to speak because, well, I never had to, right? And like I would buy like chips and candy from when I was like 11, chips and candy in Mexico, right? Chips and candy that kids in the US wanted, and then I would cross them and then sell them. I literally made like $300 per week, man, doing this when I was like 11 years of age. Like that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was great. So I had that entrepreneurial spirit. Like I had that within me.
Well, the
and then I
interesting
got
thing
lost.
about that, as I'm listening to you, right, is you think about, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's probably kind of out of necessity, right? Because, when you grow up the way we grew up with not a lot of resources and, maybe parents are kind of not really there for us. I mean, my parents were. I know that your background is a little bit different with your dad and stuff, but like, when you grow up in a difficult situation like that, you have one of two ways you can do it. And you've probably done both, because I did as well, which is, you can do it the right way or you can do it the wrong way. You get to a point in your life where you realize that doing it the wrong way is just not going to take you very far. So it's it's really truly a product of necessity, right? If you want to buy the things that all these other kids have, you either steal it, you commit crimes to get the money, or you figure out an entrepreneurial way to do it. And you figure out the entrepreneurial way to do it. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. Even though I got lost for a second, right? So let's see, man, I like to do things backwards, right? as you heard right now, like what is it that you're doing right now?
As I sit here today, look, a lot of people have asked me, and we talk about the entrepreneurial thing, and so people would say, well, what do you do? And I would always thought, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm on television, I have a podcast, I'm an author. I would say all these different things, right? And so I'm an entrepreneur, right? And so a lot of times my business evolves and changes and does different things based off of, what I see or the people who I interact with or my past experiences. And right now, one of the things that I'm doing for a lot of people is I've had a lot of success with my books, and my books are sold all over the world and translated in multiple languages. And so now people come to me and my company to help them market and sell their books. There's a lot of people out there that can produce a book and you can put it on Amazon and it's easy. That's easy, right? The hard part is getting people interested, one, and then two, actually creating a sale so that people will actually buy the book. So right now, one of the things that I'm really helping people with is taking their book to another level, beyond just selling a couple hundred copies, or we're talking thousands of copies. But I mean, even now, you talk about happiness. It's in the very title of your podcast. I mean, I'm wearing a sweatshirt called Wicked Happy. We're from Boston. We say wicked a lot. It's not just a Boston thing, but kind of originated here. And, I started this company because of my own happiness and lack of happiness. And I said, man, I just want to be wicked happy. And that very statement, that one statement that I said to somebody has now turned into a business where we're selling apparel, sweatshirts, hoodies, and everything in between in an effort to espouse happiness for people. Because without that, I mean, again, it's in the very title of your podcast, without happiness, I don't think we have anything. So it's a hard question to answer. What am I doing right now? We do a lot of different things. As entrepreneurs, we have what we call shiny object syndrome, right? I'm doing this thing here and I'm looking, I see that thing over there. I'm like, man, that thing looks pretty cool. Let me see where that thing's going. And I divert my attention over there because, we can't go in both directions. And sometimes we try to, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. You just have to recognize that most entrepreneurs have that shiny object syndrome. And you have to say to yourself, what is the best use of my time? And we all struggle with it. I struggle with it as well. I feel like I do a pretty good job now of being able to manage my time of things that make sense, that are going to not only grow my business, but provide for my family.
Okay. So let's talk about your books, man. So you have 3 books, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've written 6, but I have 3 major ones. My first book is titled Ask More, Get More. That was written in 2014. And the title kind of speaks for itself. You know, I realized at a young age, like you, growing up in a difficult situation, that, when we're younger, we're taught that asking is improper. It's gluttonous. It's rude, right? That's what we're just taught. But it's actually, that's the wrong way to teach, because we do need to ask. We do need to ask for more out of ourselves. We do need to ask for more out of others, and we do need to ask for more out of life, because if you don't ask, you're never going to get the answer, and you're never going to get ahead. So what I realized, the difference between me and the family members that are dead or have been in jail, or the kids that I grew up with that are dead or in jail, the difference between me and them is that I asked for more of others. I asked for more of myself, right? I asked for more out of life. And so that was the first book in 2014. Again, the title kind of speaks for itself with that book.
So when did it come out?
That was 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
And so what inspired you? Like, what inspired you to write this? Because it's true, right? Like, ask and you shall receive. Like, if you don't ask, like, the reason most people can't sell is because they don't ask for the sale.
Yeah, I mean, what inspired me, honestly, is because I'm a direct response marketer. We've been marketing products and services on television and the radio, and then obviously on the internet, but we mostly on television for a long time. To be candid with you, I wanted to create something where I could generate leads, bring people in, and sell them other stuff. I mean, that's how the whole thing started. And as I started writing the book, I started realizing, wow, this book has legs. And I know you probably know who Grant Cardone is, and I was in Hudson News, which is the bookstores and all the airports, and I saw his first book. I think it was Sell or Be Sold, and his publisher was a publisher called Greenleaf. My book was being written, and I said, you know what? If it's good enough for Grant, it's good enough for me. I submitted to them. They came back and said, yes, we'll take your book. This is in 2014, and self-publishing was a thing, but not really. So this is with a legitimate publisher. But what they said to me was, we want you to rewrite the book. We want you to change it. We want you to make it more commercially viable. And that was a weird thing for me to comprehend, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, you accepted the book, but you want me to rewrite it. And so they helped me kind of rewrite that book. And really what inspired me is when I looked at my friends, my relatives, my neighbors, the people I grew up with. And again, the big difference between me and them, people say, Mike, the original working title was What Makes You So Different? Like, why am I different? Why am I the black sheep, the family members? And really, there's a lot of things. One of the biggest things is like what we just said. The title of the book is I decided that I was going to ask for more of myself. Like, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be that kid in the projects anymore. I'm not going to be that kid beating people up. I'm not going to be that kid that steals shit anymore. I'm not going to be that kid that breaks into places anymore. That's just not who I want to be. So that was the first thing, right? And then I was like, well, you know what? I need help from others. I need help from my parents. I need help from coaches. I need help from teachers. When you raise your hand in class back in the day, it's like, oh, that kid's dumb, or he's just trying to get attention or what have you. No, I would raise my hand. I don't understand. Can you go over that again, or with the coaching, hey coach, you think maybe after practice, maybe you can show me this a little bit more. Right. And so those are the little things. It's a very, very easy thing to do when you think about it. But if you don't understand the thought process behind it, it's actually hard to do. So when you think, oh man, I just want to get better in life, I just want more out of life. Right. It's really, really simple to think about. If you want to progress in life, you need to ask for others. You hear the term self-made millionaire or self-made man or self-made woman. Nobody's self-made.
BS.
Everybody gets help, but you need to first ask for that help.
100%, man. So, I started this podcast. So what I do right now, so I did the modern gentleman thing. So I started in insurance. I told you my journey so far, like my real entrepreneur journey has been for 3 years, pretty, very young still.
Started, yeah.
And like at first I started in insurance. It went good. Then I started a digital marketing agency helping insurance agencies, because I realized that it was easier to sell an $8,000 service to an insurance agency owner than a $50 per month policy to a person. Right. So I did that as well. And, I invested over $150,000 in my self-development. And through doing that, I found out like that the modern gentleman helping people with the 4 freedoms is a thing, right? And I was like this is what I'm meant to do, right? And I jumped into it, and I went really hard at it, man. I couldn't make it work, right? You can probably predict how it went when you have a 20-year-old pitching to a 30, 35, 40-year-old in some cases, that he's going to help him grow his business without sacrificing time, health, and relationships. You could probably predict how that went, right? And I was pushing really hard. And then I started my podcast about 6 months ago. This is like my 80th interview or something like that, a little bit more than 80, around 80. And it turns out that I was pushing really hard, took a step back, and I realized that I had this amazing podcast, which I started by asking. I would literally reach out to like multi-million-dollar people, like seven, eight-figure entrepreneurs, 9-figure entrepreneurs, and I would literally just ask. And then they said yes, man. Right.
Isn't that crazy?
And then, right. And I asked and I got it. You know, I asked more and I got more, and I asked more and I got more.
That's
and the crazy thing was that when I asked these people to be on my podcast, right, to like, I would tell them my purpose and like my a little bit about like what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. I didn't want to get them on my podcast just because when I told them about this and they said yes at the beginning, like my first 10 people, there were pretty big people. Like I went for big, right off the bat. And the first 10 people, they would have said yes, and I would have this like feeling of wanting to self-sabotage. I would almost want to cancel the meeting because it was so easy. Like I just asked, they said yes, and I would be like, oh man, I want like I didn't, my self-worth wasn't there, and I almost wanted to cancel the meeting, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's really important to kind of expand on, you know, what you and I are talking about, not just for the purposes of my book, but it's interesting, right? We're so afraid of the no. We're so afraid of the fear of loss. We're so afraid of the rejection because we are fragile. We're human beings. Like nobody likes a no. I hear this all the time. Oh, I'm so excited that I got a no. You know why? Why? Because I'm so much closer to a yes. That's bullshit. Nobody likes being told no. It's not a good feeling. It's just not. Okay. But it's a part of life. It's a part of sales. It is a numbers game. You are going to get told no more than you're going to get told yes. So you just have to learn to deal with that pain. It's a temporary pain. It's a small thing, but you do have to ask. And it's crazy. I got chills when you said, oh, I just asked. And people said yes. Like you asked me and I just said yes. And I don't say yes to everybody. I'm not famous. You know, I've done some pretty big things in my life, but I'm sure you've had much bigger people on. And, you know, but yeah, it's crazy what will happen if you just ask somebody and they'll be like, yeah, sure. Okay, no problem. I'll be on. And you're like, whoa, like what just happened? You know, it's a beautiful thing because so many people won't ask because of that fear. They're afraid of getting that no. They're afraid of getting that rejection. Look, I don't like it. I'm afraid of it. I don't like how it feels, right? Nobody does. But I do understand and I do know that it's going to happen and it's just a part of life. So just deal with it.
But you know what, man? I think that more than the fear of getting a no and being rejected, people fear getting a yes. Because now
that's
they have
also
to
the
show
difference
up.
between, you know, the fear of failure. People, it's two things. It's a fear of failure and the fear of success, right? People are afraid of failing because they don't want everyone to know they failed. And then they're also afraid of the success because, like you had mentioned earlier, they think they're going to screw it up or you know,
They're not good enough.
Now you've reached a certain level, then you're afraid you're going to fall off the cliff, right? Because now you've reached a certain level and now it's even more fear because like, whoa, I'm already successful. I don't want to lose this. So now you're fearful of the success that you've already attained. All normal, natural stuff at a very young age for you. It's awesome at 21 that you're able to understand and recognize that because I didn't start to understand any of this stuff until I was in my late 20s after I graduated law school and I was practicing law. I started reading these self-help books. And understanding really, you know, the psychological aspect of sales and just life in general, it really gave me the ability to kind of cope with things a little bit more at a very young age. For you, it's awesome because you understand it now more so than most 21-year-old kids. I mean, most 20-year-old kids, like you talked about earlier, are, you know, at the bars, you know, tearing it up, doing crazy shit.
And I just want to like drill a little down into ask and get more because so far, you know, I had a 10-year goal of speaking in front of hundreds of people at an event, right? I thought that like that's one of my dreams. That's one of my goals, speaking in front of hundreds of people. Like Grant Cardone, man. Honestly, I resonate with him. And I have like my vision board. He's there. And hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million-dollar network with over 100, 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs? Reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast. Get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone. Through my own events and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events. Become a millionaire in 1 year. Get mentored by multimillionaires and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. And ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million-dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage, all of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million-dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye. Like I have like speaking in front of crowds and stuff, and that's what I want. And I thought that I was going to be doing that in 10 years from now, but because of my podcast, the people and opportunities that I've been surrounding myself with, I'm going to be doing that this year. And the reason for that is because I asked people who had events going on, and I was like, I prepared myself for the interview. I made myself look good, and then they liked me, we resonated, our core values were aligned and stuff. And then I asked, and they said yes. And now, like this year, I'm booked on 3 events.
It's awesome.
It's crazy just because I asked.
That's it.
Right. So that's a huge key, man. So let's talk about another one of your books. I think you have them all over there, right? On the left, on your right.
Yeah. So this one right here, 5% more. I talk a lot about this book. This book actually was probably the most work that I put in any of my books. There was a lot of research. There was a lot of interviews involved. And the concept is also pretty simple. I was actually in a spinning class. Obviously, I'm a big dude. Spinning's not really my thing, but I'm in this spinning class. And, this is before COVID, obviously. This is before even Peloton even existed. And I'm in this spinning class, and it was a 45-minute class. I'm there with my girlfriend, and in the front of the class, they have this, the spin instructor, and they're like motivational speakers themselves. And she's like, look, this is a 45-minute class. We have 5 minutes left in this class. She goes, I want you to give me 5% more effort for these last 5 minutes. She goes, if you give me 5% more effort, you're going to burn more calories. You're going to burn more calories when you're off the bike. Your resting heart rate is going to stay elevated. And ultimately, you're going to live a healthier, happier life. And then she said, anybody can do anything 5% more. And I looked around the room. There was a pregnant woman to my right. There was an older guy to my left. There were people all different ages and races all over the place. And everybody gave that little bit of extra effort just for that 5 minutes. And it just clicked, man, a bell, a light, or all that stuff was going off my brain. I got off the bike. I wiped it down, of course, because I'm not disgusting. And I went in my car and I wrote down 5% more. And I was like, man, I wonder if there's other books out there like it. And I started researching it. I couldn't find it. And then I started to think about those small, people talk about the small things, right? They say how quickly can, how the best way to eat an elephant is take little bites at a time. And I started looking at, man, like what people's lives would look like if they'd done just a little bit more, if they had just maybe read to their kids a little bit more. It's interesting. I know that you speak Spanish and English is your second language. And I talk about a study actually in the book. It's called the Hart-Ridley study. And when you think about, growing up in difficult situations, you think you have the poor kids, the middle class kids, and the rich kids. And a lot of research shows that the rich kids are going to do better than the poor kids because they have more resources. It's just, kind of just seems like kind of common sense, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the Hart-Ridley study, what they really found is that it's not necessarily about resources. It's not about that stuff. It's about the amount of words that are spoken in a household. It's about the parents actually just talking in the household. It's about the different types of words that they have. So the Hart-Ridley study, they literally put people in their homes and they just sat there and they just wrote down the words that were spoken in the households. And what they found was it had nothing to do with socioeconomic status, race, none of that stuff. What really separated the kids that were going to do well versus the kids that didn't do well was really not only the parents speaking, but here's the other part about it is also when you think about reading, right? When I was a kid, my mom read to me when I was younger, but then I started to think about, well, what about the parents where English is not their first language? All right. What about the parents who are actually illiterate? What about them? And the Hart-Ridley study says they don't care about any of that stuff. It's about speaking. And so when I started to think about the little things in life, athletics, grades, right? The difference between the difference between a 2.9 GPA and a 3.0 GPA, right? That's a C+ to a B. It's a big difference, right? But it's only one fraction of that, right? And so when you think about that, you look at Michael Phelps and you look at Tiger Woods and you look at Olympians, right? The difference between first and last is a fraction of a second, right? And so, but like that instructor said, anybody can do anything 5% more. So when I started to think about my life and the things that I've done in my life, I was like, wow, you know what? I have done just a little bit more. Like, when I had football practice, whatever, I would practice on my own. I would do things on my own outside of what the coaches did, just a little bit more than others. Because if you look at successful people, whatever business, whatever world they're in, right? The Kobe Bryants and the Tom Brady's and all these other, right? The Michael Phelps's, they all do just a little bit more than everybody else. That's really the simple thing, right? Because if you look at God-given talent, look, there's a great book called The Talent Code, right? And by Dan Coyle. I actually had him on my podcast. It's a New York Times bestselling book. And he tries to find out why athletes from different parts of the world are more successful than others, right? He goes to Curacao, which is an island off of the right next to Aruba, right? And why all of a sudden all these baseball players are coming out of Curacao, and why Brazil has the best soccer players in the world, right? Because Brazil is, it's a great country, but they don't have the same resources that we have. Like, why can't we produce these rock stars? Why is a small town in Russia always producing these amazing tennis players? And when he goes there, he looks and it's just like, they have nothing. They don't have, it's like they have the dirt courts and the whole thing. And when he really looked at it, it came down to a simple thing, which is called deep practice, right? They say practice makes perfect. That's kind of true, but it's also about the repetition, about doing it over and over and over again. So compounding on those micro successes. So when people think about success in business, life, athletics, it's not about the big things. We mentioned Grant Cardone, the 10X rule, right? I love that book. I love Grant. I'm friends with Grant. but I think a lot of people misinterpret what he's saying, right? You can't just 10x your stuff immediately. It doesn't work. Our bodies aren't wired that way. Our brains, it does not work. You cannot sustain 10xing your activity over a long period of time. However, you can take those simple steps over time and compound them over time, because, and then you go from day one, right, to day 100. Now, all of a sudden, you are 10xing. Now you can maintain it because your body, your mind is now actually been trained, and it becomes what they call a non-volitional habit. So that was a long-winded answer to 5% more.
Cool. So, man, I want to go back to like to what we were talking about. So, like, if in a household the parents speak a lot of words, what does that mean? What does that translate into?
So the more words that were spoken in the household, the more likely the kids were going to be successful academically.
Damn.
Yeah, and it was proven over time. It had nothing to do. There's another great book called How Children. So I learned about the Hart Ridley study in a book called How Children Succeed. And as a father of a daughter as well, I know that you have a young daughter. I was a soccer coach. I'm not a soccer guy, but I wanted to learn about how I could be a better soccer coach, right? And I also wanted to learn about how I could be a better father and all these things. And so, in the Hart Ridley study, and actually the book How Children Succeed, they looked at all these things. Where kids grow up, the schools that they go to, the sort of attention that they're given, and really, again, it's not about race, it's not about ethnicity, it's not about your environment actually does play a huge role in where it is. So if you look at some kid from the south side of Chicago, or you look at a kid in a tough area in Mexico where you live, right? Mm-hmm. The kids that grow up in the really, really impoverished areas, right? Those ones are less likely to succeed, not necessarily because they're poor, but because of their stress levels and because of the lack of the attention that they're getting from people that need to teach them, right? Because their parents can't spend time with them because, I don't know, they're working or whatever, right? So the Hart Ridley study basically says the more you speak in your household, the more successful your kids are going to be. You don't even have to worry about reading to them. Reading is just like an added bonus, right? My mom read to me all the time, but my mom always used to, use these big words that I didn't even, I'm like, that's not even a word. Her response was, go look it up. So I did. And so I think about those little things in life. And as your daughter starts to get older, and as you think about those things, like, man, you only have so much time and you can't go back. So you might as well figure it out before it's too late.
That's a great insight, man. So like the words that are spoken. So, like I work from home. Like I'm home here. This is like my studio, my virtual studio and stuff. And my daughter walks in and she sees me speak all day. Like that's all awesome. That's literally what I do for work.
You have no idea how powerful that is for her.
Yeah. So like literally what I do for work is use my mouth the entire day. Like I don't shut up for like the entire day for like 8 hours. And I'm always like speaking to the camera, and I'm standing here speaking and she sees me. And then at night, when we're about to like go to sleep and she's not tired, she's like, I'm going to go work for a little bit. And then she has like this little table and she acts as if she's standing in front of the table, working on the computer and speaking. And she speaks Spanish, but she tries to speak English, and she's like, shrug, she acts like if she's speaking. And, I don't know, like it feels good. Like it feels like nice.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Again, like, a lot of parents, sometimes they shield their kids from their business life or what have you, especially if it's stressful or whatever. I do the opposite. Like I incorporate most of my business life with my daughter, and she's now 16 and it's paying dividends, and she sees it, she gets it. There were times that she said, hi, Daddy, I want to go on vacation. I said, well, look, we're not going on vacation unless I close this big deal. Hey, good, guess what? I closed this big deal. We're going on vacation. Hey, this month was a tough month for the business. We're not gonna be able to do this. You're not gonna be able to get that. And she would listen to conversations as well. And so, look, we're sponges. We know this. The science is there, especially at that very young age. 1 to 5, they say, is the most important years of a human's life. And so, as she's seeing you do these things, man, again, you don't know where she's going to go, but it's certainly not going to hurt her.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah, that was great. That was great insight. I mean, man, so this is just selfishly asking. I don't like school. I was really good at school, but I don't like school now that I'm aware that it's literally useless because I haven't used anything that I learned my entire like 15 years of school for the last 3 years, right? And I used to be really good at school and I prided myself because I was smart, right? And but I realized that like the school is literally useless. So like I almost don't want to send my daughter to school. I want to send her to like some superhero school in which they find your gift and then they exploit that and then they focus on
Montessori
that.
school.
Huh?
They call them Montessori schools.
Monastery schools?
Yeah, that's what they call them here in the United States, where they they bring them in as like a not a very structured environment, and the kid just kind of figures out like what where their path is. Look, here's the thing about education, and I think there's a dangerous thing that's happening right now in social media with guys like Grant, guys like Gary V, who both of them, by the way, went to college. Okay, and guys like Ty Lopez. And you hear, oh, well, Bill Gates dropped out. Well, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard. Okay.
Yeah.
He was a genius before that. Okay. So these outliers, right. These people out there who are successful that didn't go to college, people are using them as an example and they're putting them on a pedestal as the end result that they're going to achieve as well, right? That is a really, really dangerous thing. Here's the thing about education. Is it expensive? Absolutely. Look, I went to law school. Okay. I went to undergrad and I went to law school. Very expensive, right? But for me, it's more than necessarily the education that you're going to get. It's the discipline that you're getting. It's like going to the gym, right? Where your mind is trained a certain way. It truly is trained. And you look, the science shows it. When you look at neuroplasticity, okay, which is the study of the brain, how the brain can act, the brain is malleable. In other words, it can actually change. The physical aspect of the brain can change. The neurotransmitters of your brain can change. And a lot of us need that structure. Okay. We need to be put in that environment so that we can learn. Is higher education expensive? Absolutely. Is it a waste of money? Absolutely not. Because, it's more than just that education. It is that training. Okay. It is that discipline, but it's also the relationships, right? There are things that you learn in college that most people don't even really understand, right? It's more than just the grades. It's about being able to manage time. It's about being able to build relationships, right? It's understanding what it really means to pass and fail. It really means that the understanding of consequences. Do I go to the bar on Thursday night because everybody else is, and because I have a fake ID I can go, or do I study on Thursday night so that I can pass my test so I can make it to the next semester? Okay. And kids in college, they make the decisions one way or the other. And guess what? The ones who go to the bar, maybe they pass the test the next day and maybe they even make it through. But I know those kids. I went to college with those kids and those are like the cool kids, right? They're a fucking mess now. Okay. So here's the thing about higher education. I say, look, think long and hard before you decide that it's not for you, because Gary V, who says he failed all throughout high school, right? And he proudly shows his transcripts, somehow got into college. I don't know how that's possible. He did go to a pretty liberal school here in New England, and they probably accept everybody. Grant Cardone went to college. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard. He was already a genius prodigy. Okay. So when people use those examples, I think it's really, really dangerous. Does the educational system need some sort of reform? Sure. Absolutely. Should people just wholly, discount it? Absolutely not.
Okay. Cool. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. So, yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, man, that's cool. Respect that.
Listen, you don't have to agree, but at the same time, the thing is about agreeing and disagreeing, right? And it's weird because in the States, I'm sure you see it in Mexico. It's like, look, just because my opinion might be different than yours doesn't mean that you and I can't get along. Obviously, we do, and it doesn't mean that my opinion is wrong or your opinion is right. We just have different views. Right.
100%.
And there are certain parts of it, if you listen to it, you're like, oh, like you're just saying, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know that I agree with that or whatever. But here's the thing. You and I grew up probably in similar circumstances, right? But, I did go through all that stuff. I went through high school. Listen, I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA, a C- average. I barely got into college, but then I got into college and I did well enough where I ultimately went to law school. And then when I went to law school, for 3 out of the 4 years, I was on the dean's list in the top half of my class. So we progress as human beings, right? And it's, look, you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you got no choice. You have no choice. you have to, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Sure. Do you necessarily need it? No. But do you need to understand things like economics? Do you need to understand things like finance? Do you need to understand how to manage a schedule and be disciplined and take meetings and things like that, and the consequences of not doing that, kind of like what you talked about earlier? Then I think it is something that people should look at. And lastly, look, there are so many free resources that are out there. Everybody knows YouTube University, so you can find all that stuff, right? So you can, and it is possible. But people, they need to actually put in the discipline, because if you just jump into entrepreneurship, it is a difficult world to live in. It is a lonely world to live in. It is a stressful world to live in. It is, look, I have bags under my eyes. I always have bags under my eyes. I've had them my whole life, whatever. But sometimes they get a lot worse when things aren't going your way. And to be able to cope with that is a difficult thing. And to just be jumping into it without any background at all, not advisable on my side.
Yeah. Man, so out of there's another book that maybe you can give some brief insight on, Blueprint to Business. What is that about?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing is, it was kind of standing on my soapbox here a little bit, when we do in this now TikTok world, but I used to say TikTok, I used to say Instagram, Facebook world. It's now TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat world that we live in. We see a lot of the end result, or we see a lot of what people perceive to be as successful. And we hear a lot about people's success, and there's a lot of them out there. There's all these like info marketers out there that sell information, and all of them, and they're pretty good advertisers, and they act like they're multimillionaires and they're doing all these things. But at the end of the day, most of them are complete frauds, and they're inflating really what they're talking about. My businesses have done hundreds of millions of dollars. Am I sitting on millions of dollars? No. Why? Well, because I've lost a lot. I've lost millions, right? And it's happened to me over and over. And people say, oh, geez, well, what's the one common denominator? It must be me. Well, that's true, but certain things just happen in business. And so in the book, Blueprint to Business, I talk about really what it takes to run a business, the non-sexy things. If I need to take the trash out, I'm taking the trash out, okay? If I need to go out and vacuum, or if I need to clean the fucking toilet, which I've done, I will do that, right? At the same time, I'm the guy, that's on television, or I'm the guy that's taking the meetings, or I'm the big shot, or whatever you want to call that, right? But I'm also self-aware, and I also understand that there are certain things in business that need to be done. It's the non-sexy stuff that makes most businesses succeed or fail. The back end stuff that you don't see, not the cars, the houses, the watches, and all that other stuff that people see. None of that stuff has anything to do with business. It's the, sitting down late at night trying to figure out how the fuck do I make payroll, right? How do I come up with that? It's about, borrowing money against your 401k over and over and over again. It's about taking loans out. It's about waking up in the morning and saying, man, what am I going to do today? Am I going to get on the phones myself and make sales? Am I going to sell the insurance that I need to sell? And the answer for me is yes. Most people don't understand that, right? Most of these kids out there don't understand that Grant Cardone, who's in his early 60s, and Brad Lee, who's in his mid 50s, and you look at, Elon Musk, who's, I think he's in his 50s, but all these people, they've been putting in work since day one.
For decades, yeah.
And that's the stuff that people don't understand. And so that's what I talk about in Blueprint to Business. And I show people the things that need to be done. As a lawyer, too, I talk a lot about the proper structure, of a business, and your intellectual property, and, and how to properly manage that, and the structure of a business, whether it's a C Corp, S Corp, LLC, whatever, things like that, that a lot of entrepreneurs forget about, right? And so, a lot of times they forget about it, and then it becomes a problem when it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, man, so you have a podcast, right? what is it called? What is your podcast called?
I do. My podcast is called The Alden Report. We've been at it now since I think 2014. We've had, some big names on, Grant Cardone and Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari and Chuck E. Cheese's, and David Meltzer and, Bradley, like I'd mentioned, and, just the list goes on and on. So it's called The Alden Report. People just go to mikealden.com. They can see it. It's available. My podcast is obviously available everywhere. We like to release at least one a week. I haven't been consistent over the course of the years. Over the past few years, I really have. And like you'd mentioned earlier, you said this is, I think you said is like a bit of a selfish question. That's the thing for me that I love about these podcasts when I interview people, because I interview people as well. It's like, hey, I'm getting this stuff for free. I mean, I had this guy, his name is Marshall Goldsmith. He charges $250,000 a day, right?
Damn.
He wrote a book. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? Guys, just this big time coach or whatever. And I even said to him, I go, man, this is great you're here because I feel like I'm getting you for free. He didn't like to hear that at all. But yeah, I mean, that's the greatest thing about a podcast. And for your listeners and viewers, we talked about this free stuff, to be able to listen to people that have done great things for free. It's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. This is the way that I put it. There are 4 currencies in the world: money, knowledge, time, and network. And through podcasting, so far, I've been 6 months in, done more than 80 interviews. And so like I've gotten all of those. Like I got money, right? I've gotten opportunities to make business with the people that I've been on an interview with, or I've got an opportunity so that they can put me in front of my ideal clients, right? So like an example is like Brad Blazar. I don't know if you know him. He helps entrepreneurs raise capital. And I told him, so he told me that one of the bottlenecks of that is that entrepreneurs lack the courage, the confidence and conviction to go and pitch to investors. And I told him, so man, what if we build a podcast for like your students, right? So that they can speak to potential investors every single day, every single week, and they get used to it. And they build this massive network of potential investors. He liked it. So now like I'm working a deal with him to, I'm going to have access to hundreds of my ideal clients just through that one connection, right? So money, knowledge, I'm getting people who are decades ahead of me, right? To teach me all the things that I should do and all the things that I should not do, which is I'm getting all the knowledge, which will help me collapse time, right? Like instead of taking me 20 years to get to where I want to go, it'll take me 5 maybe, right? Or something like that. And network, like the network that I'm building is going to be invaluable over the years as I keep adding and adding to it, right? And money, knowledge, time, and network, man.
Love it.
So
brother.
what is the thing that you're the most proud of?
Wow. That's a great question. I'm proud of who I am. I'm as real as it gets, as you can probably tell. I don't change who I am. I remember when I got my law degree and I was practicing law, my ex-wife said to me, she says, you're a lawyer, you need to start acting like it. And, I disagreed with her. When I'm in court, or when I was in court, I wasn't dropping F-bombs. But I'm always who I am. I'm always true to myself. I'm always honest with myself first, and then I'm also honest with the people that follow me or listen to me. I think there's real value in transparency in this world, whereas a lot of people like to kind of
be a giant chameleon,
massage the reality of their life. Where I share with people the true reality of life and business. And so I'm proud of who I am and who I'm continuing to try to aspire to be.
Nice, man. Yeah. A lot of people try to be like a chameleon, right? And fit like the picture of what they should be that different people have. And it gets tiring, right? It gets tiring.
Well, and it's also so obvious, I think, for people like me that can sniff out that stuff and step out that lack of authenticity. And I think, I don't think it's going to take you very far. That this whole kind of culture of fake it until you make it is a very dangerous thing, because you may never make it. And so you've been faking it the whole time, and you're going to continue to fake it until some point, the whole thing just comes crashing in. So if you're just look, you can aspire and try to emulate others. We all do it. I mean, we all do it, right? Like your daughter, she was trying to emulate you. She was copying you. This is what human beings do. Nothing wrong with that, right? But also just be you, be authentic to yourself. And again, it sounds somewhat cliche-ish, but I've learned it a very long time ago because, if you're not authentic with yourself first, right, it makes it very difficult to be happy, to have true inner happiness. And if you're not comfortable with yourself first, then you're really perpetuating a fraud for the rest of the world, because you're not really who you are. If you want to be somewhere else, if you want to be like someone else, I don't see a problem with that, right? If you want to aspire to be Grant Cardone, cool, right? Go ahead and chase that dream. I don't like dreaming, but go ahead and chase that goal. But, don't act like you're there when you're just getting started, because you're not. And especially guys like Grant or some of these other big time, multi-millionaires, they'll sniff it right out. You walk into a room and you try to act like you're on the same level of some of these people. It's just not, it just doesn't make any sense. Just be you, and people will respect it. And that's kind of how I try to live my life.
It's like marketing, right? So instead of marketing to fit what everyone wants, you just market what you can offer to like a specific person, and then they'll come to you.
Yeah, and some people will buy it or they won't. Right. I was just on a podcast earlier, and we were talking specifically about Grant, because we both knew Grant, and, people love him or hate him. He had Donald Trump on stage at the 10X Growth Con, and it pissed a lot of people off. Okay. Oh, well, so what? You either like him or you don't. Gary Vee, same thing. You either like him or you don't. You like the fact that he swears, or you don't like the fact that he swears. You either like, the way, Tai Lopez's affect, the way he speaks, or you don't. It's okay. And he doesn't care. And neither does Grant, and neither does Gary, and neither do I. I'm not putting myself in the same category as all those guys, although I have run in the same circles as most of those guys. But at the same time, when you do hang out with them and you speak to them, look, they have the same inner fears that we all have. They have the same insecurities that we all have, or human beings. We all have it, but they're also very comfortable with who they are. There's smoke and mirrors to almost everybody and almost everything, because, like you said, we are marketers. And so we do, massage things to a certain degree, but it becomes very obvious that it's not a reality, for most people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So, man, we're almost out of time, and I have 5 questions for you. And the first one is, if you could give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would that be? Not redo your life or change things. Just give your 20-year-old self some advice. What would that be?
Stop caring about what everybody thinks.
And how do you do that?
It's really hard to do, man. It's really, really hard to do. Again, when you ask me what I'm most proud of, I am proud of who I am, because at 20 years old, you probably don't really necessarily know who you are yet, and where you're going yet, or what your purpose is, and all that other stuff. And we all have these insecurities. And I think it's really difficult growing up and, being your age with this instant gratification world that we live in. And so you see all these other, quote, successful people the same age as you, and you're like, oh man, I want the Ferrari, I want the Rolls, I want to do these things. And so it's hard, because you're worried about you feel like you should be there too.
Yeah.
But the world doesn't owe you anything, and the world doesn't really care either. And so if you stop caring about what other people think, it makes your life a lot easier. It goes back to what I said. You can just be your authentic self. You can get there, right? But just don't, who cares if you're driving a fucking Mazda Miata right now? That's fine. You know what? You'll be driving a Rolls Royce in a few years, if that's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It kills you, right? Like, I used to be on social media and compare myself to all of those 20-year-olds who are already millionaires and already have all of that stuff. And I would like be hard on myself, because for some reason I thought that I had to be there, right? Like, that had to be me. And I would feel bad, right? Which just like got me stuck on a downward spiral loop of negativity, right? Because I compare myself to people like that were where I thought I should be. And so
it's a hard thing, and it's a constant thing too. And we all deal with it. I think that, as long as you're, again, honest with yourself, and you can self-evaluate, I think that's one of the biggest things that people lack, especially entrepreneurs, where our persona, we're like, these big tough guys or whatever, and we're, successful and all this other stuff. I think that, if you're more self-aware of where you're at in life, and who you are, it makes it easier to care less. When I say don't care, like I don't care about what people say about me. I don't care about when people talk shit about me, and which happens, doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I've had people say, hey, Mike, so-and-so was, saying all these bad things about you. It's usually a former employee of mine, right? I'm like, well, I don't care. Like, why don't you care? Because I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm not perfect, right? I never claimed to be perfect. But knowing that, it just makes it easier. It will bother you if you look at it, if you read what people are saying, but know who you are, and it just becomes easier.
100%. The second question is around mindset. What is a mindset shift that you've had that you can share that you think has contributed to your success?
Well, I think the thing about mindset is that it's something, again, that you have to work at, right? And people think that, oh, well, I'm just going to think positively and therefore positive things are going to happen. That's not how the world works. That's not a reality. In fact, I wrote about this. I believe that too many people are delirious and they are optimistic to a fault. They believe that optimism is just going to get them there. They believe that hope is just going to get them there. And that's not it. I think you have to have a healthy dose of realism there. But at the same time, I think you also do need to be optimistic. So there's a delicate balance between optimism and realism, right? And so you need to be optimistic in order to move forward, but you also need to be realistic to know where exactly you're at. And so one of the things that I like to do with the mindset shift is recognizing that each and every day I need to work at. In fact, there are times in my life where I don't, right? Where I don't wake up in the morning and tell myself 3 things that I'm grateful for, or I don't go to bed at night and tell myself the 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then I wake up and I have a different perspective on life, or I wake up and I'm like, man, I feel like crap. If you wake up in the morning, you tell yourself that, then you will in fact have that. And so it's something, this mindset shift that so many people talk about, it doesn't happen just because you say, I'm going to be happy. As human beings, again, physiologically, the way we're wired, we're actually not designed to be happy. That's a biological fact. We're designed to survive. Okay. So knowing that, you need to work at it each and every day. Like a diet, right? Sometimes you fall off, but you need to just work at it every single day, because it's not going to happen overnight. Just because you feel as though that you're a good person and that you have a positive outlook on life, it doesn't work that way. You have to work at it every single day. So really, that's the mindset shift of knowing that you have to work at it every day.
Cool. Great insight. Mindset map. So clarity, man. You talked about right now knowing who you are and being clear about that and all that. So do you have any insight, tool, tactic, strategy, or piece of advice that would help people be more clear, like have more clarity in their life?
That's a tough question to answer. And I don't know that I necessarily have the right answer for people, right? People talk about trying to find their purpose. And people say, well, if you find your purpose, then you're never going to work another day in your life. You hear about that all the time. Oh, if I find my purpose, then everything, it's not work. Well, you're not just going to wake up one day and just find your purpose, right? And so, as far as the clarity, it's really hard when you're like, hey, I want to be, I don't know, I want to be a veterinarian. Okay. But you're poor, you don't have any resources, you don't have an education or whatever. I think the thing is when you talk about the map is mapping it out, going back to my book, 5% More, and working on it on a daily basis. When you talk about clarity, it's so much easier to break it down into small chunks. Okay. When I wanted to be a lawyer, I knew that first I had to graduate high school, right? So it starts with showing up the first day of class my freshman year in high school every single day. And you go through high school and you go through college. Then you're like, all right, cool. Now I got to take this test to get into law school. And then you get into law school. And then you got to go through law school. And then you got to take the bar exam. Like, it's overwhelming if you think about what it is necessary to achieve your goals. Okay. So don't overwhelm yourself with it. Break it into small parts, small pieces daily. I tell people, look, when you wake up in the morning, it's a success. When you decide you're going to go to work today, it's a success. When you decide you're going to, bang out 100 phone calls or whatever it is you're doing, that's a success. Whether you make a sale or not is irrelevant. The fact that you showed up is a success. And if you can change your mindset that way, your clarity will come with it.
Amazing. Mindset, map, motion. What is a habit that you have that has contributed to your success?
So what's the question again?
Habit. What is a habit that you have?
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of talks about what I had said before earlier. I learned this from Tony Robbins. They say the greatest experiences are the experiences of others. And one of the things is I remind myself of 3 things that I'm grateful for before I go to bed, and even when I wake up in the morning. And the other part is a habit that's really, really important. Is I've been a practitioner of transcendental meditation for about 9 years now, and that changed my life. It allows my brain to kind of to relax. It brings me to truly what they call cosmic consciousness. It allows you to see some clarity, and then allows you to kind of go forward throughout the day. So the biggest thing for me really is that daily practicing of transcendental meditation. It doesn't have to be TM. People can find some other form of meditation for them. I know it's now becoming a thing because of COVID and mental health. Everyone's talking about it. I've been doing it now for 9 years. I talked about it in my first book, Ask More, Get More. I think people need to just slow down a little bit in order to speed up.
I meditate every single day, man.
Awesome.
Actually, if you look at my what is it called? Headspace, I think I have like 300 hours or something meditated, because I've been meditating for like the past 4 years, every single day.
Headspace is awesome. And a lot of these, that's the other great part. A lot of these apps that have been developed to really help people, kind of get there. I mean, that's more of a mindfulness type of meditation, or even like a trance type meditation. But whatever works for you, man. Like TM doesn't work for everybody, and mindfulness doesn't work, and yoga doesn't work for everybody. Find something that works for you. Back to even that question you talked about, like clarity and purpose and all that other stuff. Look, life's a journey. You're not always going to get there immediately. It's going to take some time.
So I'm just curious, what does transcend that the kind of meditation that you do? What is that about?
Yeah, TM. So TM was actually something that became popular like in the 60s here in the United States. It was really kind of originated in India, and the Maharishi is the guy that really kind of promoted it. And the Beatles actually made it big here. It's tm.org. The thing about transcendental meditation that I really love about it is that
Hey, Mike. Mike.
Yeah, so transcendental meditation, it really became popular here in the United States. Actually, when the Beatles brought it over, they learned it from the Maharishi in India. But I learned about it from Howard Stern, who was a big practitioner of it. But then I started to look at the science, and the science behind TM is just remarkable. So there's over 500 independent studies as it relates to depression, anxiety, addiction, things like that. And there's a great book called Transcendence. And so, look, for me, I was a big fan of the science behind it. And then I looked at people that were, practitioners. Again, Howard Stern, Jerry Seinfeld, Ellen, Oprah, and some of these other successful people. And I was like, you know what? If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And it's just a form of meditation. I think anybody should find some form of meditation for themselves.
Yeah, to quiet the mind. Awesome.
That's it.
Mindset map, motion, measure. So what do you think about measuring and tracking, man?
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably not that good at that, to be honest with you. I think it's important. A lot of people need to do that, to literally write their goals down, and to think about where they're at. I think in sales, it's really important. We do that for our salespeople here. Like, hey, how many calls did you make today? How many did you make all week? How many sales did you have? What was your closing rate? Percentages like that. In any sales organization, which is pretty much any organization you're in, you have to have sales. I think that you need to measure that. A lot of people get confused with activity versus accomplishment. You can be really busy and not accomplish anything. So that's why I think it is important to do it. I did it when I was selling, to really say, all right, well, I banged out 100 phone calls today, and, I made no sales, and why is that, or whatever. So I think it is important to track your progress. There's so many apps that you can do it with. I think that Slack does some stuff, and Salesforce does. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So yeah, I think it's important to keep track of it. For me, I'm so busy now with things like your podcast or taking meetings with other people for helping people with their books and stuff. So I just use a calendar app, and I just Calendly. So I just know, okay, so this is what I'm doing today. Boom, 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 boom. It's pretty easy to go back and look whether or not I did something the day before or not.
Yeah. Okay. So it's important. Mindset map, motion, measure, money. These are the questions that I ask every single day. because everyone, I mean, every single story, on every single podcast, because money is results physically, emotionally, sentimentally, and financially. And if you want results, if you want money, that's the four things that you got to get right. I believe mindset, you got to get your mindset right. You got to get your map right. You got to be able to know where you are, where you're going, and then how to get there, have the roadmap, then motion, then take the action, right? Take the action and establish the habits and become the person that is going to get there naturally, and then track, right? Tracking and measuring your progress. So, Mike, thank you very much, man, for being here. I really appreciate you. And if, people listening to this really like what Mike is all about, they want to learn more about your books, events, stuff that you got going on, where should they go?
Yeah, sure. They can just go to mikealden.com. You can also check me out on all the social media platforms. It's at Mike Alden 2012. I'm the most active, I think, on Instagram. But yeah, so, hit me up, send me a message. And yeah, I appreciate you having me, man.
Awesome. And man, you have a podcast. You've interviewed a lot of successful people. How do you think that's impacted you?
Well, I think podcasting, man, and you and I touched upon, I don't know if we were recording or not before, but I think podcasting is such an amazing opportunity for people. Look, English is your second language. You've only been speaking English for 3 years, you said, which is remarkable, and that's a huge barrier in and of itself, right? I think people get caught up in the technology side of things. I don't think you need all the stuff that you and I both have. You can literally just do a podcast from your phone with a microphone. The quality of the sound is not that important. It's about the content. And I think podcasting is one of the greatest connection tools that exists today, because you can provide value to people, even if you don't necessarily have anything other than your podcast, right? And you talked about this earlier. Big name people will come on your podcast because they like to talk about themselves, and two, they see value in the content itself. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, or if you're thinking about growing your network, I would say do it like now. Don't wait, right? It doesn't matter about what you have now. It's about what you're going to get later.
Great, man. So a podcast has changed my life. I'm literally achieving goals that I thought I was going to be achieving in 10 years from now, this year. So I'm going to put a link on the description as well, with, along with all of your links. It's going to be linked /Mike Alden, a special link just for the Mike Alden episode that is going to take anyone who wants to start, grow, launch, monetize, and automate a $1 million network building podcast. If they click on that, I'm going to take them on an A to Z training on how to do it. So it's free, right? Great training. So yeah, man, thank you very much for being here. Really enjoyed it. And I'll see you later, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms